Hi there, I'm here with Julie Burke, and she is a pre-licensed therapist in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm Tyra Butler, licensed marriage and family therapist and the early career clinician coach. And we're just going to have a chat here today about her pre-licensure process and things about her experience and things that she wants to be able to share. So welcome, Julie. Thank you for joining me.
Of
I'm
course.
so
Thank
glad that we
you.
got to meet. So why don't you start off by just telling us what you're doing, where you're at, who you work with, that kind of thing.
Cool. So I'm from Austin, Texas. I have a Master of Arts in Counseling from St. Edward's University, and I graduated there in May 2016. In November of 2016, I got hired at Austin Family Counseling. It is a group practice and it's run like a private practice. So I worked there for a year and a few months. And so there I primarily work with teenagers and do parenting support.
Okay.
I haven't worked too much with autism as a therapist, but I do have 10 years experience working with like the special needs population and people with
Oh, are you seeing them individually or doing classes?
a little bit of both. So I am
Mhm.
certified as a positive discipline parent educator. And so with that, I can do 6 week long groups. I haven't done one of those at Austin Family Counseling yet, but a lot of it is just kind of working individually with parents and doing different parent coaching and talking to them largely just about how to parent their teenager.
So what is that like for you? Are you
It's
a parent yourself or married? No, you
neither. And so I
neither. Mhm.
always, it took me a while to be comfortable with it, but I tell all of my parents that I'm not a parent, but that I trust positive discipline so much that like I just trust the process with that. But
Mhm.
I always share, I work at Austin Family Counseling and I also work at Fusion Academy, which is a private school, and I work with teenagers there. So I always just tell them I'm surrounded by teens. I get them, I understand them, I can relate
Mhm.
to them.
Mhm. And
And
how old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay. Mhm. Okay, so you do the parenting groups. And can you tell us a little bit about that approach that you use, the positive discipline, for people that
Absolutely.
haven't heard about it?
Yeah, so positive discipline, it kind of operates on the principle that children just need to be understood. So it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
just kind of giving empathy and giving choices to children, which a lot of times I feel like parents don't do, just kind of out of because it does take more patience and more time to, oh, you must feel frustrated, or it's really frustrating to be in that situation, rather than just being like, okay, we need to go and we need to go now. So it really
Mm-hmm.
teaches parents to just kind of slow down and relate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different communication techniques in it that I use also with like other people that I work with, not just parents.
Can you share some of those? I'm sure.
Sure. Let me think of some of my favorite activities. Something there's an activity called Ask versus Tell, and you can modify it based on the age, but it talks about the difference in asking someone, hey, will you, like, talking, like, for example, if you're talking to a child saying, hey, what do you need to do to not get cavities? What's next in your routine, instead of go brush your teeth, go get ready for bed? Like, it's just kind of talks about like the
Mm-hmm.
difference in how you interact with people, which I've
Mm-hmm.
also found has been like helpful with like couples. Like, I saw a couple this evening and just kind of really worked on talking like, how do y'all communicate with each other what you need?
Was
So
that
that's
the first time you were seeing a couple?
no, I've seen, this is my third couple.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt you. So you're saying what about them?
Oh, just teaching them how to communicate and kind of
Mm.
what their needs are and the difference. And people like this couple, for example, were thinking like, oh, I'm being direct, I'm sharing my needs, but it's like, no, it's not being received that well, or excuse me, received that way. And so
Mm-hmm.
just really helping people learn how to communicate is kind of, I feel like, the foundation of positive discipline.
I love that. But I think that's such a struggle that a lot of interns, and pre-licensed therapists struggle with, especially just getting into the field after graduation. They may have, they come with one experience. Did you have a practicum when you were in school?
Yes, and I
Mm-hmm.
did my practicum with College Living Experience, which is a company that works with young adults on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
I, was a mentor and a career coach in that capacity, and I loved it. But then switching to a company that operates like a private practice, autism isn't really something that's big, and I feel like in the counseling world, and
Uh-huh.
so that was kind of a new, like, okay, this is where all of my experience is. Where do I start? What does this look
Mm. Yeah, so let's talk about that because I think a lot of people can relate to that. You have one set of experiences in school, you're as a trainee or in practicum, and then you have to branch out and launch from school into something different usually, or just expand upon that experience that you had. So, what was that like for you when you graduated and started working with in a completely new place with new people?
It was so scary.
Mm,
Because throughout school, I felt like all my professors, it's like you have to find a niche. You have to find
mm,
your one true love and what you're really good at. And so all I could think
mm,
is, well, autism. I'm really good at autism. And so I and in Austin Family Counseling, they encouraged us, your new, network with anyone and everyone, get your name out there. And I did in various capacities, but people who reached out to me for help with people with autism, they needed to use Medicaid or Medicare, and
um,
I can't accept insurance as a provisionally licensed therapist. And so that just kind of
mm,
felt bad. Like it felt like I didn't feel good saying, oh, I'm sorry, I can't take your insurance. Like I don't take any because I can't.
mhm,
Um, and so then wanting to try new things and not really knowing what am I going to be good at, or what I'm going to like. Um,
mhm,
and just kind of trying to be open to that experience. One thing that was kind of encouraged and that was validating for me is that my supervisor told me, she was like, your work with special needs people and what you've been doing, like that just shows that you can be empathic. Like if you have empathy for people with
mm.
autism, you can show empathy for those other people also.
Yeah, yeah.
Totally. But it's in the process of trying new things. I did my first client at Austin Family Counseling. I thought they were coming in for parenting support, which of course I was nervous, like I said earlier, not being a parent
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
But in the beginning of the session, they told me what they actually wanted was couples counseling. And they asked if I was married. And it's, no, I'm not. Like, I've been in relationships. Like, I can talk to you about it. And they ended up not coming back because of that. They wanted a married therapist who had a child.
Um,
And like, that was just kind of a pretty big blow to my ego, because I was like, oh, like, why? Like, I could have helped them out. I could have done this. And I was okay with it as I could have been for a while.
mm-hmm.
A couple of months into it, I realized like that was really hard. Like that was actually much harder
Mm,
than I anticipated.
mm-hmm. That they didn't give you a chance. They just sort of made a decision based on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can you share more about that? Like when you said a couple months went by and you thought about it and it really got to you.
Well,
What
it
do
was
you think?
interesting. It was actually during one of my check-ins with one of the co-owners of Austin Family Counseling. Is she was just like, it was a couple months in, and I was talking about some of my successes, and she told me, she was like, I think it bothered you more than you were willing to acknowledge that
Hmm.
couple didn't come back. And kind of when she said that, it was kind of one of those things like I needed to hear. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think that did bother me, because it did. It was just, that was my very first client ever at Austin Family Counseling.
Oh,
And
uh-huh.
so I got hired with a cohort of 6 other people. And so my coworkers were having people have reoccurring sessions and come back. And I was just like, oh, my couple just kind of disappeared. And the thing with them also is they didn't reach out to me to tell me that. They reached out to one of the co-owners of Austin Family Counseling, and they were like, hey, we're looking for another clinician, like, do you have suggestions? So I didn't hear it from
Oh,
them. I found out from her. So it was just didn't sit well. Like, it was just definitely one of those things. I'm new, I'm fragile, and
yeah.
all of a sudden now I'm not good enough.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh gosh, yeah. So discouraging just starting out like that.
Absolutely.
Mhm. How did you handle that, or how do you think that you dealt with it going forward?
I think going forward, it was one of those things that I just kind of had to realize, like, my supervisors worked with me a lot on just kind of just being honest. So, like, with parents saying, you know what, I'm not a kid, but or excuse me, I'm not a parent, but I want to work with your kid and I can relate in these ways. And
Mhm.
should people not be willing to give that chance to me, like, it still hurts and it's still one of those things that's a little frustrating, but I kind of have that attitude, like, maybe that's not the client for me. Like, if that's kind of what you're needing, maybe you and I won't jive, and it's okay that it didn't work out.
Mhm. Yeah, that some are meant for you and some are not, and it's not always something personal and
Right. But
yeah.
it feels so personal,
Yes, it
especially
does. It really does. I remember, yeah, with my first few clients too, the ones that worked out and the ones that didn't. And yeah, it's hard not to take it personal because it's you sitting there in the room with them and you're doing this for, basically the first time. I mean, it feels like that for a long time, right? Each time you sit with someone new.
absolutely.
So yeah, you are a little vulnerable and yeah, it is a little anxiety producing, feeling like, they didn't make a connection or they judged you in some way or, evaluated you in some way. But
With some of my clients, we have, because I primarily work with teenagers, we have these goofy inside jokes about, who knows what. And then other teens come in and they're just overwhelmed and they're sad, and just how different hour by hour can be, or even like week to week with certain clients. And just being that trusted person with them is so valuable.
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it makes such a huge impact in so many people's lives. And I think we don't even get to hear or know necessarily, you know, all of that positive effect. But yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing that I also think, like, that I love about doing it is, like, being in therapy myself is just trying to normalize it. And
Mm,
so I'll tell people, like, yeah, not like friends of mine, I'll say, yeah, like, I'm a therapist, but I'm also in therapy, and that's okay. And just being able to talk about it openly has been really helpful.
that's good. And
Mhm.
do you mind me asking how that's helped you as a therapist? Because I wholeheartedly believe we all need to be in therapy and on an ongoing basis. But can you speak to that a little bit for people?
Absolutely. It's just one of those things that it's like sometimes, and I don't even realize it, I'm carrying around the stress of what my clients feel, and my heart just goes out to them, and just like almost, empathy overload, and just having that space that it is just my time, and you don't realize how
Mm-hmm.
much you need it. And it's because it's funny because I tell my best friend everything, but then I'll tell my best friend, my therapist, the same stuff. But my therapist she always has just a little bit of a different perspective, but it's because she's able to be objective about things. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I always tell people. It's like, it's an hour of you time just to talk about whatever you want to do or whatever's on your mind. And I feel like that's also helped me with my confidence as a therapist, and just kind of like knowing myself and also knowing the
Mm-hmm.
process that my clients are going to. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sharing it with them, I can relate to different things and the growth that they're going through.
So I think that is something that I know I can recall early on, having to grapple with myself. And it's probably something we always have to, continually work on or be aware of in ourselves, where our confidence is,
Mhm.
um, or where it's coming from or not coming from. But what do you think? What other factors do you think, other than your personal therapy and sort of working on your perspective, is there anything else that you think contributes to that?
My supervisor, hands down,
Mm,
I feel like I joke around that I like supervisor shopped. Like, I interviewed a bunch of people, and I was like, this is a huge relationship I'm about to have with someone. And
yes.
I found someone that I really clicked with, and she's been a huge part of, like, if I have any kind of self-doubt, she'll be like, let's take a step back and realize how good of work you're doing. Like, this is huge. And so that's really nice to
Mm,
hear from someone that I respect and value so much.
that's great. So if
Yeah.
you had to go back to and tell your younger self, um, something that you know now that you wish you would have known then, maybe even in grad school, what would that be?
I feel like I would tell myself to just slow down and
Relax.
yes, just relax a little bit and just say, like, you know what, this is going to be, just kind of validate this is a hard process, but it's not impossible. And it's
Mm,
scary, but it's not so scary that you shouldn't do it. And not that I ever was like, oh, I'm not going to do this, but it was just kind of like, holy cow, this is way scarier
mhm,
than I thought, and kind of feeling alone in that. And just kind of
mhm,
I would encourage my younger self to slow down and then to advocate and to continue to advocate. And if it's a scary week or it's a slow week and it's stressful, just own it and say, I'm really stressed out right now. Let
mm.
me just sit with it and, you know, get help from whoever I need help from.
So what else? What else about the either the pragmatics of the work situation or the actual clinical work do you feel like other than that is something that you're still struggling with?
I think something I'm struggling with still is just kind of like whenever, kind of like encouraging patience with people. And just I think something that I've struggled with a little bit is people will be like, I've been coming for I've been bringing my child for 3 weeks and nothing's changed. It's like,
Mm,
well, yeah, of
mhm,
course it hasn't changed. Like, it's on
mhm,
both of you. And so sometimes feeling pressure from parents and
mhm,
then kind of struggling with, like, okay, do I do what you're telling me to do because you're paying for this? Or do I do what I think is going to be most beneficial for your child, but it's going to take quite a bit longer? So
mhm,
that's definitely something I kind of struggle with, like, feeling feeling like I need parents, and I want parents to know that what we're doing is productive, but also honoring, like, hey, my child's super angry, or my kid's doing this, or my child's doing that. Like, help, what you're doing is
mhm,
working. And so kind of the pressure from that.
mhm. Yeah, when a parent or a client or anyone is putting that sort of pressure to make make some change or make some progress, and you've just begun, and
Absolutely.
that it can also impede what you're trying to do with them if you feel that pressure, right? Because
Absolutely. And just feeling like I need to kind of accommodate what they want. I'm kind of
mm-hmm,
taking this a step further, a little bit different, but tonight, the couple that I saw, our session was up, and it's a husband and wife, and the husband was just like, I'm frustrated. I don't feel like this is a good place to leave off, but it's over. And so my first thought was like, we can stay, we can stay and figure it out. But then it was just like, we ended up staying for 25 more minutes, but I'd already ran their card. So then I didn't charge them for the extra time that I stayed. And it's like, right when we wrapped up, I was like, I know I should have either stuck by, we're done, or what, we stayed, I need to charge you for the little bit more, but I didn't. So just whenever things are kind of, I don't know, I guess if things are escalated emotionally, whether it's someone's crying or someone's angry or someone's just kind of like, wait, like, I'm kind of confused, like, having that boundary with, you know what, I hear you, I appreciate that, but for the sake of time, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Like, that doesn't, like, I don't know, sometimes that can be hard for me.
mm-hmm. Like you feel so comfortable with having to that,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, that you can kind of let the time go on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for being so open and honest about what it's really like and
Of
the things that
course.
you've learned. So, if you had any kind of advice to give to someone that's maybe just starting out, that just graduated and is just getting into internship, what would you want to tell them?
I think I would want to tell them to make sure you find a supervisor that you're going to learn a lot from, and really just, like, be intentional about who you work with, even if you have to interview multiple people, because that relationship is so important.
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've got two things to say. So that, and then just find people that you connect with just for whether it's for case consultation or friends that you work with or something like that, because those relationships are so helpful throughout this process. Because of course, like at Austin Family Counseling, like I said, I got hired with a cohort of 6 other people. So we were all kind of friends, but as we've all gotten busier and busier, we might only see each other passing down the hall between sessions. But
Mm-hmm.
those 2-minute interactions between clients feel so good. And whenever that doesn't happen, it does feel really isolating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just have that little bit of contact because you're so alone in a room quite
Mm-hmm.
often, right? Yeah. Good. Well, thank you. I'm sure that's going to help a lot of people listening
Thank
to
you
this.
so much.
Yeah. So Julie Burke, Austin Family Counseling, a year and 3 months into internship.